or mellow?
Mellow.
The mellow Milan years, they'll look back and
I'm
say.
kind of glad it's that way, because when I go home, I get all the drama with the girls and my wife.
It's all made up. Yeah. Well, now they made the paddy wagons into ice cream trucks. Right, Michelle? You retrofit them.
There you go.
Welcome, everybody, to the May 9th, 2022, 4:30 p.m. redevelopment meeting for the city of Lawrenceburg. We'll read this important announcement for us here. As a recipient of federal funds and in support of Lawrenceburg's efforts to ensure non-discrimination and equal access to all citizens, the city gathers statistical data regarding participants in city activities. Therefore, we have provided a voluntary Title VI public involvement survey at this meeting. You are not required to complete this survey. The form is anonymous and will be used solely for the purpose of monitoring our compliance with Title VI and ADA. That form is in the back of the room there. You can grab one if you'd like to fill one out, fill it out, and then place it back in that envelope, and we will take care of that after the meeting. So if we could go ahead and get a roll call. President Richard Richardson is myself. I am present. Executive Director Brian Messmore.
Here.
Vice President Lenny Fryman.
Here.
Secretary Kevin Schaefer.
Here.
Member Brian Johnson.
Present.
Member Janie Wilson.
Here.
City Attorney Del Weldon.
Here.
Lawrenceburg School Board Member Brian Jansen is absent. All right, if we've had a chance to look over the meeting minutes from the previous meeting, which was on April the 11th, 2021, I'll take a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Motion by Brian, second.
Second.
Second by Lenny. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Messmore, do we have any announcements this evening?
None this evening?
Any from the board? If not, I will throw it over to Director Messmore to give us our financial report.
Well, Kelly did not circle what number I was supposed to use, so I will tell you that the fund balance in the 291 NR redevelopment fund is $1,958,228.57.
All right, any questions in regard to that? If not, we'll go on to our new business. I'll throw it back to Director Messmore for blacklist relocation.
Yes, thank you. All right. So, what I want to discuss here is a blacklist relocation assistance, and that would essentially cover the cost of renovation of 233 Walnut, which is across the street, up to $25,000, and to meet the needs of the build-out for that location to move Blacklist into 233 Walnut. As you know, Blacklist is currently located at 231 Walnut, which is the Liberty Theater, and they've been there since 2016. And prior to that, they were over, I believe, in the Durbin Plaza area, and were dislocated over there as well. So that sounded like a Lenny Fryman word, didn't it? Mm-hmm. So as a result of the acquisition of the Liberty by the Redevelopment Commission, Blacklist has to vacate. And we were fortunate. We did struggle a little bit trying to find a location for Joe and the Blacklist shop downtown. We got them together with the property owners at 233 Walnut, and they were able to reach an agreement. So, long-term agreement. In my opinion, it's important to the downtown community that Blacklist remains as a destination here in downtown Lawrenceburg. So that's my recommendation. Obviously, expenditures will all have to be documented with appropriate receipts and verification by the commission. Payable only after occupancy. It has to come with a 3-year lease minimum term. And those are our standard guidelines for protecting the investment. So, discussion.
Well, to echo some of what Brian's saying, I think it's vitally important that we do this. One of the biggest fears I had when we were talking about the Liberty Theater project was that we would, in turn, perhaps lose Blacklist. But I can tell you, the kids really enjoy that in the community. They spend some money there. They spend some time there. I know they get their shoes there. They're always wearing the hats and the sweatshirts. So it means a lot to them, to the youth in the community. So keeping that as an institution in the downtown area, I think is really important. So I would stand behind it 100%.
You know, and the other thing I didn't mention, but the fact that they're in Midtown or approaching, you know, North Walnut, it, you know, expands the walkability for the folks when they're visiting, you know, which brings more people past Bussey's, more people past Hammerlink and those kinds of places. So it's, the location is also helps broaden our footprint for the walkable downtown when people visit.
Any questions? Would we have a motion to move forward with the blacklist relocation funds of up to $25,000?
Yes.
We have a
Second.
motion by Lenny, second by Janie. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And now we have the Row House Historic Landmarks.
Okay, follow along closely here. Take you on a little tour, a little journey. Well, as you're aware, we've had trouble determining the best outcome for the renovation of what we refer to as the row house, which is 140, 146 high. For those who don't know it as familiar, it's over by our stage in the Pacific Park area. But, you know, basically it's just basically been trying to limit our financial exposure and figure out how to have the structure restored as well. So, you know, just have really struggled to find a number that we felt comfortable with and a renovation that would work for everybody. So I do have I have two proposals right now, private developer proposals in the beginning of, you know, trying to figure out what can be done with that structure, what they feel the gap might be in order for them to, you know, turn those into a property that can generate some revenue. So that being said, I invited Historic Landmarks here to discuss those proposals just to make sure that there was nothing crazy with the concepts, and actually one of them there was. But during that discussion, it came up, you know, I asked Historic Landmarks, you know, hey, why don't you buy them? And I was kind of joking. And it opened a door to a larger discussion about the possibility that they may be interested. And if the price is right, they could be interested. They have a, what's the fund that goes in and out? Revolving fund, thank you very much. That they use the money for these types of projects where they invest. I don't want to misquote what they said exactly, but essentially they would take money out, fix the building, sell the building, get their money back, and then put that money to work again someplace else. So during that discussion, we talked about it. So for them to take action, we need to take some action. We need to for them to evaluate the possible acquisition and subsequent sale, they need a commitment from us that we would sell them the property. That gives them the authority or the necessary formal action to send their team of historic design and preservation and restoration engineers out and see what they can figure out. So what I'm asking is that, I told you to follow along closely, is that we would offer them the properties at $1 for each one. Okay, we would make that in form of the motion. Once we have that formal action, they can evaluate the restoration, construction methodology, and the costs associated with that. Once that's complete, Indiana Historic Landmarks would decide then whether to go or no go. If they would go, that would, you know, we would, you know, proceed with the sale, and Indiana Historic Landmarks would take care of those buildings, what they do, it's what they're commissioned to do, and we would be free and clear.
Do we have questions about this?
Yes, sir.
Ryan?
So at what point you were evaluating possibly, we didn't have to get as extensive as we thought with,
That's
Previous-
the kind of proposals we're working through now.
okay,
Yeah, so that's, what Brian's referencing is, we had a report that was fairly extensive structural renovation, and we've come to understand that we may not have to go to that extreme. So some of the folks now are looking at it a different way, trying to figure out if they can, because the problem is that you can put the money in at that level and there's no way you can rent it and make any money. So we have to get those construction costs down, and or somebody has to contribute more in gap financing. So,
Question,
yeah.
was it discussed, or did you have a discussion? Is there any way that, I mean, I don't know how deep you are, but instead of giving it to them for $1, is there a possibility we could get a little bit more money out of it? Because we've had several engineering studies done over the years and have got a decent amount of money wrapped up in it.
Well, I mean,
So-
it's open for discussion. The intent was
Have something done with it.
have something done with
I
it.
get it.
And because of what we know about the building and to the extent of the estimated cost and construction cost of that, you know, the more we charge for it, the less they have to spend towards the renovation.
And I'm fine with that.
Okay,
But
thank you.
But my question is, though, I mean, could we just say, hey, we'll move forward with selling you the building, price TBD, to be determined, basically, that says, hey, we will sell you this at a price, whether it's $1 or $25 or $25,000, but based on their costs coming back, what they anticipate, you know, if they could share that with us and kind of partner with us where we could, you know, eventually possibly recover a little bit of the money that we've got in the,
Yeah.
a lot
I
of the
mean,
structural.
fair conversation. I think the more likely the event would be that they would have a gap on their end from a construction standpoint. If you follow me. Yeah.
Something to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of money that it's gonna cost to fix that thing from our side, from what we've all, you know, what we've all looked at.
Yeah, well, initially, we thought it was gonna cost a lot of money, but I know Brian's had some other discussions with other people
It's still a lot of.
where it would not be,
Still gonna be a lot of money.
What's the least amount that?
Yeah.
We had estimates between 660,000 and 1.2 million.
I knew the high end, but
Yeah.
so the low end was around
And
600,000.
yeah, and we went through an extensive, exhaustive comparison to make sure that there weren't any elements missed in the design proposal. And then we bid it out and we didn't get any bidders. So, I mean, it's a bit of a stalemate, and this was an option that I feel strongly about moving forward with. And we can still entertain and I mean, I'm still showing it to people and all those other things, but I am telling them, you know,
If it costs too much on their end for them to obtain the building anyway, they may not find it as palpable to come in and even do the studies to see if they would be even able to entertain the purchasing the building at all. Like, is that probably where they're coming from on there?
yeah, and I mean, and I also, you know, we're a partnering agency with the Historic Indiana Landmarks, and, you know,
This kind of gets it into somebody else's hands to fix, take care of, and then put back out on the market and get the building
Yeah.
back in use, correct? That's the line of thinking.
that's the line of thinking.
Brian, if the plan works with Indiana Landmarks, when would we transition the ownership? Would that be 3 months from now, 6 months from now?
I would like to have an answer between 30 and 60 days of a go, no-go. And I don't know if they can meet that. I just talked to Jared. I don't know if he's out of town. I don't know if he's had a chance to run it up the ladder and have a larger discussion with, you know, the board members, but this would have had to have been the first step.
Okay. If we go this route, is there a way to put a deadline on when we would want to see activity on that property? Just thinking forward, I wonder
Yeah.
if financial winds, political winds shift
Yeah.
a bit, and then we're sitting here 3-5 years later,
Yeah.
and
Well,
no action has been taken.
Well, we can certainly talk about that, but I do not believe it's gonna be in their best interest. If they say go, they're not gonna sit around. That's their money tied up.
Well, it's $2.
Well, not if they only got $2 in it.
Yeah.
Until, yeah.
You're
until
wanting
real
some sort
money
of
is
time requirement on it for the fixing of the actual.
Well, I think that could be
Yeah.
hashed out with Dell and his,
So that we're not sitting here in 3 years wondering
Right.
why no activity has happened.
That's fair.
On that property.
That's fair. I'm sorry, I haven't turned my back.
No,
to
you're
you.
fine.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So do we maybe have a motion here in the works where we're gonna recommend selling the buildings for $1 apiece with the caveat that they take X amount of time to begin reconstruction, or?
They could have they
Well-
could provide an acceptable schedule of construction prior to closing.
That would come back and we would have to review
Yeah.
that.
Right, and I can imagine it's not gonna be moved to the top of their priority list from day one. So we'll have to work with them to agree on what is fair and
Yeah,
reasonable.
I think that's a good point. I get it. No, that makes sense.
Ryan, what's your
Yeah.
feeling on it? Would that be something you would be, what do you think?
I'm okay with it. I'd just like to see a little bit more than $1 return, but I understand where Brian's coming from. We've been sitting on these forever and been talking about them for, 7 years, 8 years since I've been, between the school board and on here. It's like we've been talking about it. And, like I said, I know we've got a fair amount of costs that we've, had people in and out of there, giving us estimates, and none of that's free. And I just would like to see if we could recoup a little bit, but. I
Every
mean,
dollar, and I get it, but every dollar that goes towards the purchase is a dollar that doesn't go towards renovation.
And I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
If that's all we can get, that's all we can get,
Yeah.
but
And it
I
seems
think
to
we
me like it's
definitely
like
need to
the-
put a schedule in there that, we gotta have something done, some sort of activity within a couple.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
This discussion that you've had, it seems like this is the closest that we've really gotten to some actual movement on these buildings, so, I don't know.
I'll tell you that 2 months from now. I'll answer that. I'll comment on that 2 months from now.
Well, and I think that the important thing is that this is not a situation where we just obtained property and we're gonna sell it for $1. I know that's, probably shouldn't have led with that, but, that's the bad reputation that the old Lawrenceburg and the old redevelopment got, but this is a property that we've done a ton of work on, worked hard to save it rather than tear it down, probably against logic, just letting the desire to not tear down, a historic structure, even though it makes more sense to do that. And so anytime, and Brian shopped the property 100 times, and also with the engineering that he was able to obtain and then verify and kind of re-verify by working with not just residential interests, but, commercial developers and developers who kind of also have background in the construction side. They were able to really verify that those big numbers, those huge 6-figure numbers to keep it standing are real numbers. So anytime anyone's approached us in a traditional sense, it's come with the caveat, we'll buy the property, but then we want a bunch of money in return to fix it up. So this is an opportunity to have a historic preservation entity do that work without getting a bunch of money from us. So it's not 6 and 1 and a half, a dozen the other. But I don't want anyone to leave here thinking we're giving it away or we're not asking for significant money in return. It's actually the avoidance benefit of
Agreed.
having to, let's say we sold it to them for $50,000, but then a private group, then they would say, well, we want a $500,000 grant immediately, where we could give it, not have a $50,000 return by partnering. The better way to look at it is we're partnering with historic preservation, but then we don't have to give them a huge 6-figure check, and we know that it's going in the hands of an entity that has the same mindset and philosophy that we do with these properties, which is the historic value can and should in certain circumstances outweigh just a bare bones commercial decision or, a cold logical decision. And I'll draft this agreement and give it to you guys to look at, and we'll have multiple clawbacks, but I think Brian's vision is getting the property in their hands so they can start to obtain grants and funding as best they can, and that's something that we've always known is very true. And we've actually, the mayor and Brian and I have gone and met with the historic leaders in Indianapolis and asked them what's every program you have, and how does it work, and how do you qualify? And here's a picture of the Liberty Theater, and here's a picture of the row house, and what can we do? So to get it into that system, let them raise as much money as they can, and then I'd say, once they get to the point where they're working on it, we'll have some kind of voice in the room for, what it will look like with some limitations, but also we're with a group we can trust isn't going to just make it, bright green and yellow, John Deere colors or something crazy like that. And when they're done with it and they're thinking about what the next use is, then we'll have a voice in the room there too. So those are the things that we always look for in terms of protection. What's the most cost-effective way to be good stewards of these public dollars, but at the same time save a historic property, and at the same time have some control over what the next use is, and have some control over the construction project because the park's there. So this proposal by Brian really checks all those boxes and takes all those things into consideration, which is what we do with all the projects. I know that a lot of times when we're in this room, we kind of get focused on if there's 20 elements to a project, there's always going to be the top 3 or 4 that we're really going back and forth with, but just, maybe more for the public's edification. This group, the city council group, Brian's group upstairs, the admin group, the Main Street group, the Jenny Fowler's group, the group next to Chamber of Commerce, all these groups together are always working to check all those boxes at once, rather than just say, okay, how much could we sell, the old firehouse for? That's never the equation. Although, Brian, to your point, we don't want to do what the city did kind of to get them in hot water, many moons ago, which was just give things away on a wing and a prayer. We make sure that everything is really locked in and thoroughly vetted, and there's protections and clawbacks to achieve this cumulative vision. And that's why, when you look at proof, it's not just that we said, hey, let's have a restaurant be there. We want it to look a certain way, a certain kind of restaurant, a certain kind of group with a long-term deal to keep that group in place, or at least, that continuation of that group, and then a clawback, if it didn't happen. So that's the same with the Union Hall, the Liberty Theater, with the row houses, with proof, every project we touch.
Thank you, Dell. Good explanation. All right. So do we have a motion to move forward with discussion with the Indiana Historic Landmarks to sell the properties to them for $1 apiece, pending approval of final agreement and construction schedule?
Motion.
We have a motion from Janie. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Lenny. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on, we have an RFQ for the Liberty Theater architect and construction manager. Mr. Messmore?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm asking for action this evening to advertise RFQ for both construction management and architectural services for the Liberty Theater. And I sure would like to pick up the pace on this historic renovation.
We're going pretty fast, man. I mean,
So you just looking for a motion, to move forward?
Yeah.
Let's go. I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
And We have a
Aye.
motion from Brian, we have a second from Kevin. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Is that quick enough, Brian?
Motion carries.
This will be two separate requests for qualifications. They'll be published in the local paper. The current schedule would be to get them approved tonight, and then I'll talk to the register about their publication schedule in the Journal Press, to get them published as quickly as possible with the goal of having them due on June 10th so that you guys can approve the contracts on your June 13th meeting. So that's the fastest I think we could even think about getting it done. Qualified architects and design professionals and qualified construction managers. The delivery method here will be kind of a reduced version of what Brian and I did at the school renovation, which is construction manager as constructor, CMC, where instead of a traditional project where you'd have a architect or an engineer design it and then you'd bid out the construction manager work. The CMC statute in Indiana allows you to RFQ and hire the architect or engineer and the construction manager in the pre-construction phase, and then the result of that is a guaranteed maximum price and a guaranteed delivery date before you sign the contract. So they work and get paid for this pre-construction phase, and then they'll say, here's the guaranteed maximum price, here's when it'll be done. If we don't like it, we can walk away and we can redo it, or we could go to traditional or bidding the construction manager. But this is a way to spend the least amount of money but get the exact thing that we want and what Dan wants. Obviously, we're gonna trump Dan a tiny bit, right, because we're paying for it, but we're gonna preserve his vision, and doing this delivery method allows us to work side by side. We got an architect on the right hand, a construction manager on the left hand. If they say, hey, architect designed this awning, I can't build it for that cheap, like they spec'd it out, or the construction manager says, hey, I need the architect to change this, then we're gonna meet with Dan. We're gonna say, okay, if this is gonna save us a bunch of money, let's figure out a way to do it and still preserve your vision, and we'll be able to be involved step by step without slowing the project down, but achieving the maximum cost savings at every step. And so that's why we're asking, and thank you for approving RFQs to lock in those two professionals, and then it'll be a step-by-step process that you guys will be involved in as we do the rehabilitation and renovation of the historic Liberty Theater.
And one motion for both is fine.
Yes, it is.
So, just for clarification, that motion was for both. If there's no additional new business, we will move on to old business. We have the Main Street report. Michelle is with us tonight.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle with Lawrenceburg Main Street, here with an update on the 8 grant programs that Main Street implements on behalf of the Redevelopment Commission. Last month, our design committee approved an awning repair of one that was broken on Walnut Street and a residential exterior facade grant up on the hill. And I would like to say that I really appreciate these $25,000 improvements that you're giving to specific locations. So Jenny and Brian and I meet regularly to attract businesses to downtown. We've successfully activated all of the properties or most of the properties that are easy to activate, and the ones that we have left that are underutilized or unused and have been for a long time are a little more challenging, and they're going to require some more work. So these funds are enabling us to attract the kinds of businesses that we really need to create a walkable and vibrant downtown. So thank you for that.
And it's really awesome too, because the money is going into the building improvements. That is a key thing to remember. So even if, God forbid, a business doesn't succeed, there's still the improvements to the structure, the improvements to the building, that's still there and still present.
Mm-hmm. Our historic architecture is a big attraction for downtown, and preserving these buildings is amazingly important to attract people who want to live downtown and work and run their businesses. And so that's it for the report. And as a citizen, I want to say thank you for moving forward on the row house. I think time is of the essence with that building. I know because I walk by it regularly, there's more raining down from that building than just stucco anymore. It's starting to lose other pieces. So I think it's really time, and Indiana Landmarks this is what they do. So if they're willing to partner with us, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Michelle, appreciate it. Appreciate what you do.
You know, I just a comment on the, you know, we've talked about that $25,000 and, you know, certainly there are limits to that at, you know, at some point, but, you know, we still, you know, reference those as food, beverage, retail. Those are, you know, our discussions are directed towards food, beverage, retail shops. You know, this isn't for professional services. You know, it's the element of the walkable downtown. And as, you know, we're talking to business or building owners who have businesses on the first floor that, and we're getting into, you know, lengthier discussions about what their future plans are. And I can't guarantee them anything because it always has to come to a vote. But, having that tool, you know, can bring some confidence to a discussion that wouldn't otherwise be there whatsoever. And then, so, I mean, it is, you know, there's always different opinions about how it works, but the bottom line is food, beverage, retail. And if we can find a place for them and develop a partnership with the property owner, 3-year leases, you know, business planning, all the things that make the best chances for success in place, it really does make a difference in those discussions. And it's not a ton of money.
But it makes a big difference.
It makes a big difference.
A little bit could go a long way. If we've had a chance to review the claims that have been in our packets, I will go ahead and take a motion to approve those claims.
So moved.
Motion from Kevin. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Lenny. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And we'll have comments from the audience. If there is none,
Scott?
all right, if there's none, I will go ahead and take a motion to adjourn.
Just kidding, Scott.
I would like to say one thing. There was a couple people on the hill that's talking about our businesses down here, and they said they're not open late enough in the evening. That they get off at work at 6 o'clock, and they said time they get home, a lot of the businesses is closed. I don't know if he was talking restaurants or the,
Maybe some of the retail shops.
just retail shops and things, you know. But I told him that I don't know who we'd bring it up to, but I thought, well, makes sense.
It's
I'd say
It's a
something.
tough battle to fight.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and the merchants themselves, Michelle, if you want to speak on it, I'm not the chair of the meeting though, so.
Yeah, Michelle, if you have any comments, great. From a Main Street point of view, if you want to come to the podium and maybe make a comment on that.
So thank you for bringing that up, and we'll bring it before our merchants one more time. And we have given them articles about the fact that it does take some time. So if they're going to stay open later, they need to advertise it and they need to give it a chance and have it go for a long time. Because once someone comes, twice they come and the shop's closed, they're not going to come back. So we need to rebuild it. We keep mentioning it. I think as we have more downtown traffic and now we have people living downtown, once we can make that time profitable for them. So I think we're almost there.
We have a shop owner here as well, Scott, if you want to make a comment on it.
Oh, now you want to talk.
You come on up to the podium, yeah.
Come on up here and talk
sure.
to us.
No more than half an hour.
So on that note, as far as hours, we as owners of business have discussed different times and, hey, let's try to be open on Monday. Forget it. There's a lot of businesses, they will not open on Monday and they will not open on Monday. So that's a set deal. When we first opened for, I don't know, 2 or 3, up until COVID, we were open till 7. And our numbers did not show that 7 o'clock at night helped. So we moved it to 6, and it really hasn't changed because we didn't want to do 5. 5's too early. So, where is that? I mean, could it help, maybe it could help on a weekend to be open on a Friday night till later. But I think there is good consideration there, but you have to watch that people only have so much time in the day, and some people just are not gonna be open later.
Yeah.
But anyway,
the
but it's a good point.
It's a discussion that they're willing to have, so. if we
Yeah.
Take that message back to them, and then, Scott's here, he's heard it, so, and you've been fighting that battle ever since you opened, I'm sure, about what hours to be open, what hours to be closed.
Right. And we have Square, which has helped us, so we can look at every day that we've been open to see where our sales are. But then again, COVID's changed things, so, like Susan said, is that data any good anymore from back
true.
when? So we're open, we want to do business. We want more car shows. Anyway.
That's the answer.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
I honestly think if we could talk the mayor into a Ferris wheel, I think we'd have more business.
Well, you're just on about that Ferris wheel.
I agree with that.
All right, if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and take a motion to adjourn.
I had a question for you.
Yes.
Ryan, have you had anybody inquiry about the bank property on the corner of 50 and Tiger Boulevard?
No,
You know what their asking price is?
no, but we own the parking lot. I believe it's in the city's, can't remember what color it is on the map. First Financial Bank.
We own the parking lot. What do you mean color?
I don't remember if it's redevelopment property or city property, I can't remember.
City.
So, we would need to be prepared to, they would need to be, the council would need to be prepared to take action in the event that property was gonna go for sale, because
Well, it is for sale.
somebody's
They
gonna
got a
get
list
I
of
mean,
that.
if it's gonna be sold, because somebody's gonna get a parking lot, and that's another level of confusion and or distraction from.
We put them on notice, last week. We put First Financial Bank on formal notice that the easement is extinguished once they sell that bank to anyone, because the easement was part of the development agreement.
Right.
They've been served that. If that comes up, they won't be able to sell the easement or access to that lot when they sell the bank, unless they come to us and ask for a new
Right.
deal to be struck.
Right.
Is there a basement in that? Do you know?
Not that I'm aware of, but I do not know.
Just wondering. That's all I had.
If nothing else, I'll go ahead and take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion.
Motion by Janie. Second, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Brian. All in favor? Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I started to say I oppose just so we could stay a little longer.